Been a long time coming. Been a huge fan for a long time, which, yeah, yes, I'm definitely looking forward to it, man. So
Thanks, man. I
yeah,
appreciate that. And back at you. I love your videos. When you reached out to me, I was like, why does that guy look familiar? And I was like, oh fuck, you're one of my favorite people that puts out content on Instagram.
thanks,
And
man.
I've talked to I just did Joe Rogan's show, and we always do his show, which is 3 hours.
Yeah, yeah.
And then we finish, and then we shoot pool. There's a pool table in the
Hmm.
studio, and then we always shoot pool for another 3 hours. So there's a lot of talk. There's a lot
Yeah.
discussed. And you came up, and we were both going on about how great your posts are.
Damn, dude. That's awesome, man. That means a lot. Like
Yeah.
it's a hell of a lot of work, but I enjoy doing it. Like I've
Are you
always
gonna
been
run out?
I don't know. See, that's a weird thing. I'm a very anxious person, like
Yeah.
very worst case scenario. So I'm
Uh-huh.
always worried that I'm gonna run out of shit.
Yeah.
So I'm like
Well,
right
then I'm glad
now,
I brought that up.
dude. Oh,
Are
trust me.
you are you concerned about your weight?
Actually, not at all. No. Let me tell you something. Every time I feel like a little tingly feeling in my foot, immediately think, "Oh fuck, I did it. I got the
Yeah.
diabetes."
You got this. You got the sugars.
Man,
Yeah.
yeah, no, yeah, I'm worried about a lot of things, to
Yeah.
be honest. My weight is probably 8th or ninth on the list.
Wow. What's
Yeah.
number one?
Uh, um, you know, a taking my shirt off while I'm swimming is a
Yeah.
big one.
Yeah.
That one's lingered, like,
Yeah.
that's a childhood one that really just,
Oof.
I don't know, someone breaking into my house and killing me in my sleep.
No.
Yeah, it's a big
Where do you live? What city?
Longview, Texas, which, is also nicknamed, Murder View, so, that makes you feel
What city is it near?
kinda by Dallas. I mean, that's, like, the closest big city. It's in
Yeah.
between Dallas and, like, Shreveport, Louisiana, so yeah,
Damn.
it's alright. It could be a little
Yeah.
sketchy, but,
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
yeah, I don't know, man. I watch too much true crime,
Yeah.
just way too much of that, and
Yeah. You got to lay off that. That's no good.
yeah, I can't help it, man. I just, like, I don't watch like, I love comedy, but I
Yeah.
don't like watching comedy movies anymore
Yeah. I'm the
for
same
some
way. I
like,
just find them all very formulaic, or you see them, it's sweaty. They're always trying to give you a funny scene, as
mm,
opposed to like like I just watched Young Frankenstein again, and it's just
God,
about incredibly layered funny characters
yes.
that they build, and then when they interact, it's gut laughs, and it's not, and they have big set piece
Mhm.
physical bits that are funny, but they're not hanging everything on that. You watch like a Paul Rudd comedy, who
Yeah,
is he? Like, who is his character halfway through? You don't know. He's just delivering lines and setting up
yeah.
what a bunch of punch up writers have thought would be a funny scene.
Right, I know, and it comes across so clearly. Like, I've never been involved in movies or anything like that, but I I feel like I can tell whenever something's just done
Yeah.
like that. Like Mel Brooks, I mean, there's nobody that even comes close to that
Yeah.
in my
Right.
mind. Like, that's which always, I mean, we're pretty different in age, I imagine. How old are you? Like,
I'm 27, but I've lived hard.
okay, fair enough. Well, we might be a little closer than I thought. Yeah.
No, I'm 58. 58 years
Jeez.
old.
Are you
Yeah,
really? I mean,
yeah.
not trying to kiss your ass or anything, but I would never would have guessed 58.
Oh, that's no, well, how about when I
Yeah.
do this? Does that make
Never
any
mind.
difference?
Yeah.
You son of a bitch.
Sorry. I was about to pull up another tab and type in Make a Wish. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm gonna see. I put a little tab underneath that people could donate to St. Jude's, not old men's hospital. St. Jude's needs an old guy hospital. What's with the kids getting all the dough? I mean,
I
what do we
know.
not mean anything?
Well, and also kids, they get everything for free anyways.
Yes.
Like yeah, I mean, that's a bunch of bullshit. Kids get way too much shit. I mean, when it comes to, I mean, you get a trophy for every goddamn thing,
Yeah.
and now you get cancer treatment for free.
Yes.
Horse shit.
I know. And then when they're getting the cancer treatment, what happens? People come in and give them toys. It's like, enough.
Yes. Oh, they get to meet Johnny Depp, which normally when someone meets Johnny
Yeah.
Depp, not such a great time.
Got a
But
good
these kids,
outcome.
these
Right.
kids get to meet him, and it's, the greatest day of their lives.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Man, you know, I've ki okay, when you were a kid, if
yeah.
Make-A-Wish was a thing, which I don't know if it was or not, who would you have wanted to have meeten if you had, leukemia as a kid?
Meeting? Is that a word?
Look, all words are made up, so what does it matter?
Who would you want to have meeten? I mean, I
Ugh,
don't know what part of Texas that is exactly, but
man,
Metten. I mean,
you
what is
mean
that?
yeah, well, let me tell you, look, my education was not the greatest. Like, our history books had pictures of Jesus riding
Yeah,
dinosaurs.
right,
Like, it's yeah.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
all the slaves are white.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was a good deal for them, a good deal for us, like,
Yeah,
it was
right,
yeah,
right. They
no,
learn skills.
that's
Um,
legitimately what we were
who
told.
was my Make-A-Wish when I was a kid?
Yeah, who would it have
Steve
been?
Martin. Steve Martin. I was a
Oh,
Steve
that would
Martin
have been
fan ever since I was probably about 10 years old. And
yeah,
he was just coming up, and he did SNL early on, and
mhm,
my father took me to see one of his concerts, and to this day it's
really?
one of the greatest experiences of my life.
Oh, that had to have been fucking incredible.
Yeah, it was amazing. And it was just like, like Let's Get Small, like his early albums were just so silly and
Mhm,
funny, and it made me think about what math, like the comedy is math. It's
yeah,
like, all right, here's a quotient, here's a situation. Marx Brothers were also a huge influence. I
mhm,
liked hard turns, and I
yeah,
liked tight wordplay where a joke hinged on a phrase that was so boiled down that there was math to it, that you said this thing
mhm,
equals laughter. It was like this magic
yeah.
recipe, and I became obsessed with figuring cracking that code.
Well, I completely understand, like, it's one of the reasons why I've always thought, like, one-liners, like, people who do one-liners, like, it's so genius because it comes across so simple, but, like, someone like Mitch Hedberg,
Yeah,
like, I think Mitch Hedberg's one of the most talented comedians of all time, but it's so hard to do stuff like that. Like,
yeah,
it's so hard to actually come up with a joke, instead of, like, just telling a story that happens to be really funny. Like, yeah, like, people like him, Stephen Wright. Stephen Wright's another comedian that I think's incredible. Like, even, like, old Woody Allen, like, Woody Allen had,
oh
a lot
my
of stuff like that
god,
too.
yeah. And Anthony Jeselnik,
Yes.
and all those people we just named, are the delivery system for the one liners is also like a really interesting different character, because if you're
Mhm.
going to do one liners and you don't have any character behind it, it you'd be hard pressed to watch an hour of that. It would get
Yeah.
very mundane. It would be like somebody reading a joke book to you.
Yeah.
But when Stephen Wright, just starts, wandering the stage back and forth, looking confused like a mad scientist between jokes, it just adds to it.
Yes.
And,
Yeah.
when Jesselnick like eyeballs the crowd with a leather jacket on and has no remorse, it just, it builds.
Yeah. And it has to be authentic to that person.
Yeah.
Like Anthony Jeselnik couldn't do the delivery that like Mitch Hedberg does and vice versa. Like
Yeah.
there's still, even though there's like a character to it, it has to be believable that they
Yeah.
would deliver it that way. When you
Yeah.
were starting, was it hard not to just imitate like the cadence of other people? Like how hard is that? Like coming up with like your voice, as they might say.
Yeah. I mean, I started out, there was all the comics that I love. Like I collected comedy albums as a kid. I have a
Mhm.
huge comedy album collection right now. And, obviously Carlin and Bob Newhart was a huge influence on me. I
Yeah.
sounded a lot like Bob Newhart when I started. And then
Yeah.
I started in Boston, and there was some guys there that you've never heard of
Like Lenny
that,
Clark and
oh, maybe you have heard of them.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Lenny
Somewhat,
Clark, and this
yeah.
guy named Don Gavin and Steve
Yeah.
Sweeney.
Uh-huh.
So I would say Gavin had the biggest influence on me, on a lot of people. There was a lot of
Mhm.
comics that started at that time that ended up with this it was a very throwaway delivery. It was very sardonic
Hmm.
and casual, and the jokes were a lot of times in the tagline. There was a joke, and then there was a real quick throwaway tagline after it,
Yeah.
and then Bill Hicks obviously had,
Yeah.
I cycled through, Newhart to Gavin to Bill Hicks, and then Dave Attell once I got to New York, where
That
every single comic sounds like Dave Attell.
that's what I was kind of thinking in my head was like I wonder who the next version of that. I think maybe like Shane Gillis. Shane Gillis is a person that I think if you go see like younger comedians now, they all kind of sound yeah, yeah, yeah. There's a
Yeah,
lot
you're
of
seeing
that.
a lot of this physical
Yeah.
tick after the joke, trying to draw it out a little bit.
Yes. Yes.
And and he gets a lot from Louis C.K. I mean, if
Right.
you can't have Shane Gillis without Louis C.K.
Yeah. Who I think is that's like if I have a Mount Rushmore, I mean, Louis CK is definitely on that.
I don't think anybody's ever been as good. I think it's Pryor and Louis C.K. are the two greatest comics of all time.
You'd put him above George Carlin?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Because that's
yeah.
normally
Because
the 1-2 is, Pryor Carlin, like
yeah, I mean,
everybody loves
I
Rolling
mean,
Stones. I
maybe
mean,
that's not fair. Maybe Carlin's the three-headed monster, but like
yeah.
Carlin, I think in the end, like his last few specials
Mhm.
left you like go out on top.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
keep going if it's not strong. Like he got very pedantic, and
Yeah.
politics were, just very heavy-handed, and it was no longer about being funny.
Yeah, it was more of a TED Talk than a
Yeah,
than a
yeah.
special, which it was still interesting because his brain is interesting, but it's like,
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
was like watching Bill Maher, who used to be like a really sharp, interesting comic, and now he's become a caricature of himself without
yeah.
the good jokes mixed in.
Yeah, that seems to be just a problem that happens to some people for some
Yeah.
reason. Like maybe it's laziness or like getting, kind of in a thing of like, oh, well, I don't really have to reinvent myself. Like Sam Kinison, I think kind of like when you go back and look, like kind of had some of that, where it's like, oh, he became like a guy playing the character of Sam Kinison.
Well, and Lenny Bruce getting into the transcripts of his trial. I think it becomes
Yeah.
self-importance. I think it
Yeah.
starts to become about like I'm meaningful. What I'm saying is, I'm a
Yeah.
mouthpiece for something. And it's like, no, you're a comedian. Just be
Right.
funny. I mean, if you make a point in your comedy, that's fantastic, but that's
Mm.
extra credit. The
Yeah.
assignment is make everybody laugh.
Right, and that's where so, like, and maybe it's a generational thing, but I've never really understood Bill Hicks as being like I never really found him to be that funny, and that's just, like, my own fucking personal thing, but I do think he's interesting and makes, like, good points. I just have never watched, like, his specials and been like, "Oh, this is fucking hilarious."
Well, I think the context was different because when he was
Yeah,
coming up, nobody was breaking down the barriers the way he was with
yeah,
that kind of attitude. And that has been co opted by so many comics now that
mhm,
you don't know that, oh, he was the first to do it. That's what
right,
was amazing about him. It's like you
mhm.
see, I'm trying to think of another example of that. Uh, I'm blanking,
Well,
but
there's, like, music versions, so, like, I think
yeah,
Kiss is a big one where people my age or younger, like, we think of Kiss as being, like, a joke,
you're right.
um, but if you were, tw 12 years old in 1976, like, that was probably the most mind-blowing thing on the
Yeah,
planet,
right.
but then obviously so many people came after them and started mimicking, like, the stage show and, like,
Yeah,
pyrotechnics and all this stuff.
right,
So it's like
right.
comedy versions of that.
Yeah, yeah, I guess so. But I think that yeah, I think that when you're finding your voice, it's important to cycle through some other voices because
Mhm,
there's a lot of tools that would come with stand up, and some of them are stage presence,
mhm,
timing, how you do the mechanics of where microphone goes, and so if you're doing somebody else while you're learning all those things, that's fine because
yeah,
you're building up your confidence and your ability to be on stage, and
mhm,
then you start to figure out your own voice, and hopefully you never leave those other voices out completely. It's
yeah,
like I mean, I consider it part of Gavin's legacy that there's a dozen comics out there that are using his style a little bit. I mean, it's like the way
Yeah.
Jimmy Stevie Ray Vaughan came along and played Hendrix in a way that was like a tribute, but he did it his
Right.
own way.
Yeah, and because that's what works with any kind of form of entertainment or art, however you want to look at it. Like you you have and that's what's always been fascinating with me about going back and looking at like the origins of things is partly because I like finding out who influenced this person and then looking at
Yeah.
that person and then making like
Right.
the chain
Right.
reaction until I get
Well,
to,
that's why it's
the
great
beginning.
when singers will drop in, like Van Morrison, who I love and I'm
Uh-huh.
listening to, and then he's got a song called Jackie Wilson Said, and I go,
Yeah.
oh, let's check out some Jackie Wilson, and then you listen to Jackie
Yeah.
Wilson, you go, oh, that's going to lead me back to Sam Cooke or whatever.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yes, exactly. And that was always fascinating to me, was like trying to connect like from Deep Purple to Kiss to, or like Blue Oyster Cult, like all these bands.
yeah.
And then, yeah, and then getting to like today and going back and forth, back and forth. Like I've been a kind of a pop culture fucking fanatic my entire life. Like it was
Well,
just,
it's funny because you are a collage of music. You have on a Dead T-shirt. You got the Misfits, which is punk, and then you got
yeah,
Rush, which is metal. Um,
yeah,
so you
yeah.
have what is your main genre of music?
Man, I mean, mostly, I guess you would say like classic rock, like
Yeah,
70s, late 60s to late 70s would be probably like the main thing. But honestly, just anything that isn't boring. Like
yeah,
the way I find out if I like a band or a song is, am I bored listening to this?
right, right,
So
right.
I don't want to hear it. And
Yes, yes.
yeah, like
You can tell when somebody is just playing they're using all the tricks.
yeah,
I was in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which if you ever get a
yeah,
chance, the Bob Dylan Museum is there,
hmm,
which is mind blowing. It's two
yeah,
floors of interactive stuff. It's the second time I've gone, and I was
yeah,
just excited the second time. And then I went to a place called the Church Recording Studios,
uh-huh.
which was started by Leon Russell.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That used to do a lot of stuff with like Elton John. I actually
Yeah,
wrote
yeah, yeah.
Levon is about Leon Russell, I think.
Oh no
That's one.
shit,
Yeah, yeah,
really?
yeah. Hmm.
So he started this studio, and he did it. He must have been like 1971. And Clapton came in and
Yeah,
performed there. The Tom Petty did his first two albums there. George Harrison recorded there. It's just
yeah,
on and on. And JJ Cale. And
yeah,
so if you ever get a chance to go to Tulsa, I think you'll get a big kick out of those two places.
yeah, yeah. I'm not that far from Tulsa. I need to go look at that. Like,
Yeah,
especially Bob Dylan. I'm a massive fan of Bob Dylan. Like,
yeah.
huge, huge fan. I mean, he's one of those people that I definitely don't want to ever see live.
Me
Like,
neither. Never have, never will.
no, not interested. But man, I will. I love just sitting down listening to Bob Dylan's music. Like, there's just a
Yeah.
handful of those people that, like, for some reason, just do something. Like Cat Stevens is another one. I'm like a massive fan of Cat Stevens music,
Mhm.
and I
Yeah.
don't give a fuck about seeing them. But yeah, there's. What was your first concert?
The Bay City Rollers.
Saturday night. The Big City Rollers.
And let me explain why.
Yeah, I didn't know you were bisexual. Yeah.
I hated the music. And but there was these girls, Cindy Vieira and Lourdes Garrido. They were Portuguese.
Uh-huh.
And me and my friend Josh had huge crushes on them. And they were going to the concert. And it was at the Palladium in New York City. And so we fucking went. And dude, I'm embarrassed to say I had a plaid scarf on. And we went SATURDAY night. And
Oh, man.
Cindy and Lourdes didn't give a shit about us. They were
Yeah.
getting wet watching these 16-year-olds sing. And but I
Yeah.
think my first real concert was actually my dad was in radio in New York,
Uh-huh.
and he decided he was going to be a promoter. You know how DJs sometimes become
Yeah.
concert promoters. So he holds this big concert, and it was at. You ever heard of the Moonies, the cult, the Moonies?
Yes. Yes. Yes, I
Reverend
have.
Sun Young Moon, and
Mhm.
it was a Korean cult that came to this country,
Yeah.
and he had this estate, and somehow my dad convinced him to let us do an outdoor music concert, and it was the Shirelles and it was the Rondells, and it was a bunch of like female bands from
Yeah.
the 60s.
Mhm. Like, yeah, all the,
Er,
like, Phil Spector
yeah,
kinda
yeah, yeah,
sound.
exactly.
Yeah.
So we plan the thing, and he sells a bunch of tickets, and then we go out there, and all the cult people were standing around in robes, like it just, like creeped everybody out, and then it started raining, and it was like my dad, and that was it. I mean, the music was great, but
Yeah.
that was my dad's last producing credit in music.
Jesus, dude, that's a hell of a 1-2 punch. Bay
Yeah,
City Rollers, and then listening to doo-wop with a cult.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like a dream come true for me, to be
Yeah,
honest. Like,
yeah.
I mean, it's a lifelong dream to join and or start a cult, so and I'm a huge doo-wop fan,
Well,
so
I think starting it is so much more work. Like the upside
yeah,
of being in it is, all right, there's free sex, there's free love.
yeah,
That's nice.
amen.
There you don't have to worry about wardrobe. It's like, here's your fucking unitard or
Yeah,
whatever they wear, and
yeah,
that's it.
the
And then
90s, yeah.
if you really believe in the spirituality, it's usually amazing. It's all about positivity.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the downside is siphoning off your life savings, having to cut off your loved ones, but whatever.
Yeah,
It,
Janet
it's
Reno killing you. Yeah, there's
Oh
I mean,
yeah,
yeah.
there's the real Texas you coming out.
Oh, Waco, Texas, man.
Yeah.
That's where, like, all my, family are from, and,
Oh,
we're
really?
very staunch Branch Davidian supporters, which actually is, is kind of a revisionist history. Most people around here were very supportive of them, like, very, like, "Yeah, we stand with David Koresh," which is
Really?
hilarious because he's a piece of shit, but,
Now, was that before or after the massacre?
before and during, mostly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like, it was a huge thing, like, with my family, like, going down there, like, fucking seeing all of it. They were all from, like, this city that was, like, outside of Waco called Rosebud. It's like a piece of shit city, but,
Uh-huh.
yeah, they would, like, go and watch the standoff and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Which actually Timothy McVeigh was one of the people who was out there too, the
Oh,
Oklahoma City
yeah, yeah,
bomber.
yeah, that's right. That
Yeah.
that was didn't he do the Oklahoma City bombing on the same date as the Waco?
420. Yeah, April 20th. Yeah.
Hitler's birthday.
Hitler's birthday. Yeah, and it was supposed to be the day of the Columbine shooting, but they didn't realize that, like, that was a Sunday, or like that they weren't going to be on school that day, so they did it on the 19th.
Duh.
Yeah. Well, they weren't like the smartest group of people.
So let me ask you this,
Yeah,
not to flip this and interview you,
sure.
but so are you full-time social media guy, or do you have a day
Mhm.
job still?
No, that's full time.
You making a good living?
Decent,
And what
decent.
what did you do before?
Uh, just a bunch of random stuff. So I was a
Yeah.
substitute teacher for a little bit. That was like
uh,
the most recent thing I did, as I was a substitute high school history teacher.
I was gonna say history. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah. But I worked like a bunch of like telemarketing jobs. I worked
Oh,
at Best Buy, a movie theater, like all kinds of just random stuff.
wait, what do they call the Best Buy people? Because at Apple, they're
Well, there's
geniuses.
Geek Squad.
Geeks? Were you on
Yeah.
the Geek
I
Squad?
wasn't, no, 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 I wasn't on that level. I was one of the peons, under the Geek Squad. I mean,
Yeah.
mostly I just showed up to work either drunk or hungover and, tried to swindle people into buying shit they didn't need. Yeah.
Did you get a commission
No.
at Best Buy? Oh,
Nope.
but just for sport.
Yeah, I mean, they, like, monitored your shit and were like, you don't seem to be selling enough." It's like, "Alright, well, fuck
Yeah.
you. I'm getting paid $10 an hour, so
Right,
kiss
right,
my
right.
ass." Like,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I'm not really cut out for a real job. It's just one of those
Well,
things.
isn't that the beautiful thing about the internet? Is it really like, let your freak flag fly,
Yeah.
whatever it is that you do, and you've done an amazing job of taking what it is that you're passionate about. And that's what I think really sells it. Is sometimes you see people making social media posts and you go, all
Mhm.
right, AI just told you what to say, and you're trying, and they all have
Yeah.
the same kind of internet speak. Hey guys, and when you do
Yeah.
it, it just really comes off as like you're compelled to tell people cool shit, and that's what
Thank
makes
you.
people respond to it so much.
Yeah. I mean, I try, like, that's just always been something that I've enjoyed doing, is like finding something interesting and then even more fun is like telling someone and like seeing that they are interested. It was like my way, like some people are funny, some people are this, like whatever it is to get in with people. That
Yeah.
was always mine, is that I could like tell like a
Icebreaker lines.
yeah, it's like icebreaker stuff, which I was
Yeah.
always like an awkward, weird kid, which I've just
Uh-huh.
become an awkward, weird adult.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was like kind of my go-to, is like what
All right,
I
so I'm
just
going to
yeah.
name some topics and you're going to give me a fact about it that's kind
All
of
right.
interesting and offbeat.
Well, okay, let's see.
All right, the Revolutionary War.
So there was a guy named Baron von Steuben. This guy from Germany who came down. So people don't really look at the American Revolution like in this way, but it was a kind of a disaster in the beginning. Like George Washington was not the
Not a good
greatest,
general.
not a
Yeah.
good general at all. And part of it is because he was, the general of a bunch of fucking farmers who
Yeah.
were part-time soldiers. And this guy named Baron von Steuben, who was this gay dude in Europe who had been basically banging all of the princes and kings in Europe, got sent down here because he was like, shit, I got nothing better to do. And he basically completely changed everything around, like flipped the whole army around, and basically got ran out of town because he was started banging John Adams' son.
So John Quincy Adams' cousin.
Yes.
Right.
Or brother. No, brother.
No. Was John Quincy his son?
Yeah, John Quincy Adams is his son.
Oh, I thought it was his nephew.
No.
Oh,
That's
no,
his son. So yeah,
I'm thinking of Teddy Roosevelt and
Franklin.
Franklin Roosevelt.
Yeah, I mean, they're not even, they're barely related. Actually, Eleanor Roosevelt
is
more
closer.
related to Teddy.
Right,
Yeah, because
right.
they're second cousins, Eleanor and Franklin, which, Jesus.
Okay, McCarthyism.
Oh,
Joe McCarthy.
well, yeah. Man, I don't know I mean, I know like just nothing that's just like crazy interesting. I mean, other than like Charlie Chaplin, like, his connection to it, or like Mankiewicz and all those people. But I don't really know anything that's like I know like old Hollywood stories that are interesting that are
all right.
like,
I'll give you an old Hollywood. All right, the Marx Brothers. Tell me something about the Marx Brothers.
I know very little about the Marx Brothers. That's one group of people that I've like I underappreciate for sure, because the little I have seen, I'm like, God damn, these people are amazing.
Yeah, you need to start at the beginning. My kids were introduced to the Marx Brothers when they were probably 7 and 10. And they immediately fell in love. The great thing about the Marx Brothers is they can appeal to little kids, and they can appeal to the most refined comedy palette all the way through. They are, because they were on the road doing vaudeville for 15 years before they started making films. Like their first movie, Duck Soup, was actually a staged play that they'd done 1,000 times.
Yeah.
And so it was all beat out already. All the jokes were there. All the physicality was there. I mean, if you look at the way it's shot, they do these big physical gags on one camera in one take. And they're like 3-5-minute bits.
Yeah.
And they're nailing the dialogue and the interplay and cutting each other off and playing an instrument, and then a fucking duck flies through the flame, and it's all one shot. It's incredible.
God, I know that filmmaking back then was just so much more interesting. Like it was so much more like high risk. Like, I mean, Buster Keaton and Charlie Joe, like, and Harold Lloyd doing these like crazy stunts. Like, all of it's just, I mean, and then the people, because we get this like romanticized version, like idea of what Hollywood was like, and they were a bunch of fucking animals back in the day. Like, I mean, you can read some stories where you're just like, oh my God, like this is like, I read one just like earlier today where I was like, how the fuck is this is insane. So, Spencer Tracy, obviously from like, I guess who's coming to it. So between movies, this son of a bitch would check himself into a hotel and bring just a case of scotch, sit in a bathtub naked, and just keep drinking the scotch and shitting and pissing on himself constantly. He would sit in the bathtub so that he didn't have to get out to use the bathroom. And what's crazy is that he would do this for like 3 days straight of just scotch, nothing but scotch, and just
Yeah.
stewing in this shit. And then it would be time for him to like get ready to do another movie. And there was a guy who was like, his job was to come in, clean him up, sober him up, and everything. That guy was Nancy Reagan's dad.
No way.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Was the father like, hey, Trace Spencer, just say no. Just say no to this.
No, I mean, it was just like, that's, this is my job. I gotta
He's on
go.
set the next day, and Katharine Hepburn's like,
Oh, you smell terrible.
you smell terrible.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, I mean, he'd just come in there,
Wow.
hose them off, and all right, back to work, and he'd go win
Yeah.
an Oscar. Yeah,
Well, yeah, I
crazy.
mean, you look at like Fatty Arbuckles, or was it
Yeah,
Fatty or Daddy Arbuckle?
Fatty.
Fatty
Yes,
Arbuckles.
Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle that
I mean, what?
allegedly killed that woman, which
But
he
didn't he
may
have
or may not.
fetishes as well?
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, well, oh boy, there's a handful of those, like Clara Bow. I mean, she had a train ran on her by the entire USC football team, including a young John Wayne, who was one of the members of the team.
No way.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there's a
Damn.
bunch of those, a lot of, fecal stuff that,
Uh-huh.
that kinda goes ugh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, a
So
lot.
what's your takeaway on John Wayne overall?
I mean, I think he's a shit actor. I mean,
Shit
even
actor.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
he's probably one of the worst.
One note. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, he did, like, a couple of police movies that are some of the funniest fucking things ever because it's
Uh-huh.
still him talking like Rooster Cogburn, but he's a detective.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he was a piece of shit as a person
Yeah.
too. I mean, like they had to hold him, whenever like Marlon Brando sent out
Yeah. He wanted to
Shawnee
attack them.
Littlefeather. Yeah, he wanted to
Yeah.
attack her. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, just fuck that dude. Um, yeah, I mean, a lot of those guys were just pieces of shit. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, Errol Flynn, like all those dudes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
even like Bing Crosby, like, beat the shit out of his kids and
yeah. Jerry Lewis. I mean, he did some kind of wasn't the greatest to his
no,
kids. I mean, it's
no.
which, parenting's just different. Parenting is,
Yeah. Well, back
it's
then they
different.
really did feel like it was the woman's job. And you look at Sinatra, just that
Yeah.
dude, if he wasn't on the road nonstop
Mhm.
performing, him and the boys would just head off to Palm Springs or Vegas or whatever
Yeah.
and get their dick sucked by underage girls for a week while the wife is at home going like, wait a minute, weren't you just on the road working? What the
Yeah.
fuck where are you?
I know, yeah, poor Mia Farrow's at home. It's like, "Well, I guess I'll end up with Woody Allen." It's like,
Yeah.
"Holy hell, what a step down." But,
It's pretty crazy when you see pictures of Ronan next to a young Frank.
how anyone thinks that that's not his kid, and
Yeah.
he says he doesn't think that that's his dad.
Has he
Like,
done a blood test?
no. Uh-uh.
Yeah.
No, that's been, like, a huge thing of, like, trying to get Ronan Farrow to take a blood test to be like, "Hey, asshole, like, you
Yeah.
don't look like Woody Allen, and you don't
Yeah.
look like Mia Farrow.
Yeah.
You look like Frank Sinatra."
Do
Yeah.
you think I'm so horrified that this younger generation will not watch Woody Allen movies. And so I've started to show my kids Woody Allen movies.
Yeah.
I'm starting early on. So we just saw, I think it's his first movie, which was Bananas.
Yeah, about the Cuban Revolution or
Yeah.
kinda
Yeah,
yeah.
well, he's Central American, yeah.
Yeah, Central America. Yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah,
they
that would be
laughed
the
their
first.
asses off. They
Yeah.
loved it.
Yeah, that's a great one.
And then
Yeah.
Annie Hall they really loved,
Mhm.
Manhattan they really loved, Alice, which was kind of an interesting 90s
Yeah.
movie of his. So what do
Yeah.
you think about that? Should he have a lasting legacy?
Yeah, I mean, for his movies, I mean, you separate. I think you separate it. I
Yeah.
think if, you know, like, I mean, yeah, David Bowie was fucking a 14-year-old and Jimmy Page was having sex with that same 14-year-old.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna not listen to fucking Led Zeppelin or David Bowie. Like,
Right.
and yeah, Woody Allen, I'm not a massive fan of his movies, but there's like a handful that I do like, and I will watch them if I want to. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna stop because he's a fucking weirdo. I mean,
Yeah.
Roman Polanski, like I'll
Yeah.
watch all of his movies, and he's
Mhm.
an actual monster. Like,
Right,
you know,
right.
but
Yeah, yeah.
I
I
don't
mean, are people gonna not listen to my the craziest is when like I'll be at like we'll have a friend of the family that's having a bar mitzvah and all these
know.
fucking 13-year-old kids are out there dancing to Michael Jackson songs. It's like this is weird. Like, well,
Yeah,
nobody's gonna play Diddy songs because he didn't make anything good. So it's easier to
yeah.
just go,
Well, yeah, if they're what they made isn't good, then but
yeah,
ultimately, like, I wasn't sitting around banging out Diddy songs,
yeah,
and
right.
I'm not gonna well, I might start now because actually I've become more of a fan of them because, yeah, just fascinating.
Yeah,
But, yeah, I don't know, man, I don't care about, like, what they're doing. I like hearing the stories and, the
yeah.
crazy ones and, I mean, like, if, if I had, if I had like a heart problems or whatever, like I wouldn't, and I had a really great cardiologist, I wouldn't stop going to him because I found out he, did something fucked up in 1978. Like I'd
Unless
just be
it
like, hey, take care
involved
of my
it,
heart, sure.
right, unless it involved how he dealt with people in the office. If he's
Yeah.
like grabby handy in the office, then I go, all right, well, maybe I'll step away from this guy. But
Well,
if it
yeah.
just has to do with children, again, they've got St. Jude's, they've got the toys, like
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah. I mean, you get a participation trophy for everything. Yeah. Give the kids need a little something.
They
Like,
need some strife for character.
yes. I
Yeah.
mean, like, I don't know whatever happened to Oliver Twist, but I imagine he turned out pretty good because he had to deal with all that bullshit,
Well, he
you
had
know?
to pick a pocket or two. So,
Exactly. And, he had to deal with whatever that older guy was doing, probably some, feeling around if I had to imagine.
oh,
Like,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, Victorian England, I mean, Jesus Christ, that was,
Mhm.
yeah. I
Yeah.
don't know. I think it's good to have, some bad shit happen to you.
Little Orphan Annie? I mean, well, all right. A real life
Things, yeah.
example. How about Shirley Temple, who was, you know, abused as a child actress, and she ended up becoming a fucking congresswoman.
Yeah, she was ambassador to I can't remember, like, the Czech Republic
Yeah,
or some
yeah,
shit. Yeah. Yeah,
right,
yeah.
right.
Yeah, it was mind-blowing to me when I found out she was still alive. I mean, I found out she was still alive, the day that she died, so I guess I did was a
Yeah,
little too
yeah.
late, but
Right,
yeah,
right, right.
yeah,
I know it is like the estates of these artists. I mean, they must really fight for control of royalties because the record sales go through the roof when you die.
oh, man. Well, that's the conspiracy stuff is that, like, people had Michael Jackson killed so that they could make a shit ton of money off of his sale prints, like, all that stuff.
Oh,
I
okay,
don't know, I
yeah,
mean, who knows if I don't know, I think Michael Jackson might have just been addicted to propofol, which is somewhat if you've ever been under the influence of anesthesia, it's very addicting. So,
yeah.
it's not
Have
really
you
like
been addicted to anything?
alcohol. Yeah, I used to drink, like, a lot. Yeah,
Yeah,
full blown,
and
yeah, alcoholic.
now you're sober.
Yeah, I quit drinking maybe about, like, 4 or 5 years ago.
Oh, good for you,
Yeah,
man.
thanks.
Yeah, I got
Yeah,
34 years under my belt.
damn, damn. Well, cheers. Just pull out a drink,
Yeah, right, right.
light up a crack pipe.
Yeah,
Congrats. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. We did
yeah.
it.
Yeah, that's no, it really wasn't that hard to quit. Like I needed to, and
Hmm.
just wasn't doing anything for me. It wasn't really that fun anymore. It's like, well,
Yeah, that's the thing about drinking is like, the first however many years you do it,
mhm.
it's fucking great. It answers a lot of problems for you,
Yes.
social awkwardness, and it lets you feel feelings more easily. You access joy, you access
Mhm.
intimacy. But then, it just starts to become repetitive where like, you wake up in the morning and you don't remember what you did. And you just like, God, again. And then you
Yeah.
just bottom out one day. Hopefully, not everybody finds that bottom, but
Yeah.
hopefully you find that moment where you just are so disgusted with the repetitiveness of this behavior and you feel
Yeah.
so weak and you feel so stupid and you just go, I deserve better, you know?
Yes. So I never hit like a rock bottom, I would say, but I kept drinking and driving and
Uh,
knew that this is really fucked up to be doing
yeah,
this. Like I've never had an issue, like I mean a wreck or something like that yet.
yeah,
And then I started just thinking, what if I did? Like, what if I killed some family, and
Not a
chances are,
kid, like, who cares? But,
well,
like,
yeah,
if
no, no,
you
no, I
killed some
mean, two,
adults.
yeah, good adults. Like,
Yeah.
what if I took them out and made a damper, a dent on society? Um, because chances are I'd survive. That's how it always works.
Yeah.
It's the drunk dude who survives.
Right,
So like,
right.
what if that happens? Like, I'll be, yeah, no, I can't be doing this. And now I never
Yeah,
have to worry about it again. Like, I can
yeah,
drive whenever I want, and I
yeah,
never have to worry about a DUI or anything like that. Like,
yeah,
yeah, I usually don't regret things in my life. That's one thing that I look back and I feel real fucking gross about.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
Well,
yeah.
I mean, it's tough because if you come from a culture of drinking, like I grew up, my
Mhm.
father was an alcoholic, and all
Yeah.
their friends were
Same.
alcoholics, and then we started drinking super young, and
Yeah.
it just really like I did not know what an alcoholic was until I was about 20 years old,
Yeah.
and I'd lived with it, I'd watched it, I was, and
Yeah.
so when you live, and I'm sure Texas is like very much drinking. You
Uh-huh.
live in a drinking community.
Oh, yeah. 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 Yeah, I mean, it's everything. Like, everybody's drinking all the time, like, for
Mhm.
any little, any get together, Thanksgiving, what, it doesn't matter. Like,
Yeah,
if more than 2 people are in a room together, they're drinking.
yeah.
Like, it's just the
Have
way
you
it
been?
is.
Did you go to your 10th anniversary high school reunion?
No. Fuck all of those people.
Yeah, I
No.
know. My 40th is tomorrow night, and I'm
Are
not
you
going.
you're not going to?
Well, it's back in New York, first of all, but I might have gone. And then I got a gig in Kansas City, and I was like, "What am I going to not fucking?" I make $125,000 a weekend. Am I going to give that up to go to? I don't make
No.
125,000.
I was gonna say, oh, Jesus Christ.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's yeah. Have you gone to any of them ever?
No. I think I might have gone to like the fifth. Uh,
5th?
just to see, yeah, like the fifth reunion. They had like a
Oh, okay.
fifth, and
Yeah.
that was it. And I saw everybody, and I was like, "Who cares? Who
Yeah,
cares?" And you know what?
yeah,
Everybody's just going to ask me the same stupid question. Oh, so you're doing stand up? Do you make a living? Are you on the
yeah,
circuit? Do you know
yeah,
Kevin Hart? Like, I don't
yeah.
want to answer those
Or they're gonna ask
questions.
you a million Joe Rogan questions, which you
Yeah,
probably get asked, so a million times anyways, like, anybody is in that, world, like, so
yeah.
obviously I'm a huge, fan of his as well, but, like, that's just one of those things that, like, people are just gonna bombard you with questions that you just don't wanna fucking answer.
You don't want to answer them. And there's
Yeah.
only about two questions I want to ask them. What do you make in a year? And how's your erections? That's it.
Yeah, there's a direct correlation, I think, between the 2, like, the more you make, I think the bigger the erection. Or
I don't
maybe
know
the
about
opposite.
that. I think
Maybe
it's
it's the
the opposite.
reverse.
Yeah, yeah. I
Mm,
think poor guys, all they got is coming, you know. And
that's
so
true.
when you're rich, you got, yachts, and you got people making you brunch, and there's lots of upsides. But when you're poor,
Yeah,
man, you live for that orgasm.
yeah. Well, that would explain a lot. Yeah, 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 my god. Boy, that's a yeah. Maybe I hope I kinda bottom out at about here. This this is my maybe, just slightly above the poverty
Yeah,
line is where I
yeah, yeah.
belong.
Right, right. That's the highly sexual region.
Oh, yeah, yeah, because poor people are the ones who have the most kids, so the
Yep.
clearly the ones doing the most fucking.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. You're in a refugee camp. You can't even get a meal together, but you're fucking dropping loads
God.
every 9 months.
Oh my god. Dude, this has been, I mean, I know we're cutting it on time. Dude, this has been a blast. Man, I've had a great time talking with you.
Awesome hang. Yeah, I feel like
Thanks.
next time I'm in Dallas, man, we got to hang out for sure.
100%,
Yeah.
100%. Dude, so before you go, plug, promote the special, everything, where can people find you, all that good stuff.
Well, the special's on YouTube. It's called You Know Me. We just hit 400,000 views, which I'm really psyched about. I didn't know that
Hell
we do that
yes.
well. Yeah. And then it's if you want to come see me live, fitzdog.com is the place where you get tickets. I'm coming out to Philadelphia, Tacoma, Tempe, San Francisco, Cleveland, and then my podcast is Fitzdog Radio, and where I interview different comedians and actors. I got Kevin Nealon coming up. I just had TJ Miller next week. And then Sunday Papers is my other podcast that I do with Mike Gibbons.